Pretty much everybody on earth is telling you that you should be setting boundaries with a man, whether you're dating him or in a relationship with him or married to him. On the surface, that sounds like good common sense advice. Of course you should be setting boundaries, because what's the alternative? Being a doormat and getting abused, and you don't want that. However, the advice to set boundaries with a man is actually not really healthy. It causes a lot of problems in your relationship. It is going to be pushing away a man's devotion, and he's never going to be inspired to cherish you in the way that you truly need and deserve. And that is what we are going to be talking about in this video: understanding boundaries, why it is a problem for you to be setting boundaries with a man, and what you should be doing instead, not being a doormat, to inspire a man into being your dream man. Before we get to that, I am going to, of course, introduce myself. My name is Zach Rohde. I am here to lead you into creating the relationship of your dreams using your feminine energy and what I call feminine communication to inspire a man into cherishing you. And if you have not yet subscribed to this channel, make sure you do that below, hit the notification bell, and be sure to like this video, because I'm going to make sure it's a good one for you. Not just a good one, but this one can be extra controversial. It's one of my favorite topics. And this started, we're going to talk about all about boundaries and how you should be communicating instead. But first, I'm going to talk a bit about my relationship, my marriage that I've been in. I met my wife about a decade ago. And in the past, not recently, but in the past, she would set boundaries with me when I was doing something inappropriate or just like bothering her in some kind of way. You know, usually I got a very playful, kind of annoying, provocative sense of humor, and I like to poke. So I would do a lot of poking to my wife, and she would try setting boundaries, telling me to stop that, don't do that, etc. And that seems fair, but whenever she would do it, it irritated me. It wouldn't just irritate me because it was kind of interfering with me just playing with her, but it's totally understandable. You know, sometimes I take things too far. Sometimes I take things way too far. Sometimes a woman's sense of humor, including my wife's, just doesn't fully jive with mine, and that's okay. It's not an enjoyable experience for her, so obviously she should not continue to expose herself to something that she's not really enjoying. However, when she would do this to me, I'd get irritated. I would lose interest in wanting to interact with her. And that got much, much worse, actually. 3.5 years into us being together, when my masculine instinct came fully online. So that was about 6 years ago, something like that. And what happened was, when my masculine instinct came online, I became much more hypersensitive to my wife leading in any kind of way. When a woman is leading a man energetically, that can be telling him what to do, it can be questioning, it can be judging him, it can be any form of manipulation, and yes, it can be resisting him in some way, putting up a wall, including setting boundaries. And I don't necessarily mean aggressively, it can also mean doing it with love. Whenever a woman does that, she is being disrespectful to the man. I shouldn't say whenever, because there are times when it's actually appropriate to set a boundary. But in general, it's disrespectful. It's disrespecting his instinct, his masculine instinct. It's disrespecting him as the leader of the relationship or of the dynamic. And it's basically telling him, because this is a lead-in to where we're going in this video, I don't trust you to set boundaries for yourself. I don't trust you to take care of me. I don't trust you to keep my heart safe. So I am going to protect myself instead. And that's basically an insult to a man, right? Because that's the implied message that you are giving him. So that is insulting to him. It's a form of disrespect. Now, it's not intentional disrespect, of course. It's very unintentional disrespect. You're just trying to get your needs met as best you know how. You're just trying to avoid hurt or an uncomfortable situation in the only way that you know how. But the result is it actually is disrespecting him, and he's probably going to respond not super great. You know, it can be a range between him actually being very irritated by that and reactive, and on the other side, he gets it, he accepts it, but he's not inspired by it. And this actually goes into this whole idea, I'm not going to go into it much in this video, but this idea of respecting women. And don't trigger away from this as soon as I say it. Just tune in for a moment if you're new and you're not really familiar with my work. Men are not here to respect women. We're not designed to respect women. Our masculine instinct is not wired to respect women. This does not mean that men should be disrespectful to women. This doesn't mean that men should be treating women like crap. Absolutely not, okay? Men should be treating women with care, with devotion. But there is an instinctual difference between a man choosing to treat a woman well, with care, from his own leadership, where he's setting boundaries for himself. He's choosing to be a good man for you, to take care of your heart. It's like, my role is to lead and take care of you. I'm here to make you feel amazing through my own leadership. It's a big difference between that and you telling him what to do, you setting boundaries with him, and then him respecting that. Okay? He's not wired to do that. You are wired to do that for a man. If a man lovingly, of course, keyword lovingly, sets a boundary for you, sets an expectation for you, you are energetically wired as a woman to submit to that boundary. Assuming, of course, that the boundary makes some amount of sense. I mean, a man could set a boundary out of pure insecurity, but assuming it makes sense, it's like it's easy for you to do that, and you feel that respect for him when he sets the boundary. Men are not wired to feel respect for a woman. We are wired to feel devotion for a woman. Big difference. Massive difference, because the man is supposed to be in the leading role, the caretaking role, right? He's there to take care of you. So his job is to devote to you through his leadership. Your job is to follow his leadership, your role in the dynamic. It's to follow and respect his leadership. So it's easy for you to respect those kind of boundaries. It's easy for you, if a man's being respectable in some kind of way, it's easy for you to respect him. We're wired differently. Ladies, we're wired completely differently. So stop trying to get a man to respect you in any kind of way and focus on being the best version of yourself to inspire a man to devote to you. Okay? That's going to feel so much better. It really is. And if you're not fully clear on what I mean, the energetic differences, that's okay. You keep watching this video, you keep watching more videos, and it's going to start to click. I'll give you another example of this as we go. Or before we go further. So in my academy program, for example, I work with hundreds of women, roughly about 120 per year at this point. So they're all in this container together, this group, and they're all learning together. They're learning from me, and they're learning from my coaching team. They're learning feminine communication. They are learning how to let go of control. They're learning how to share their feelings vulnerably. They're learning how to shift into their feminine self-worth. They're learning all these beautiful, wonderful things so that they can have a healthy, devotional relationship with a man. Now, in our container, women do not set boundaries with me or the coaches. Now, to be fair, they also don't need to. And because we're going to talk about some nuance here about when it actually is appropriate to set boundaries. There is a time for that for sure. But they don't set boundaries with us because they don't need to. All they need to do, that doesn't mean that there's not things on occasion that a coach is doing that is causing the woman to feel bad, where she needs to share what's going on so that he can adjust his leadership. That does happen. We try to be really devotional. We try to anticipate a woman's needs and feelings, but that will never happen. But when it happens, the women share what is going on, what they're feeling. It might be sadness, it might be anger, it might be irritation, it might be shame, whatever. And the coach will lead them into sharing why this is happening without blame, without judgment, using feminine communication. And then once she does that, and the coach knows, like, oh, I didn't realize that this happened, or this is affecting you in some way. And then sometimes all that needs to happen is the coach coaches the woman into her feelings and help shift her perspective or whatever. But sometimes it could be because of something that the coach was doing, and then he just adjusts his leadership accordingly. And then there's no need to set the boundary at all. The coach in this case, needed to know what was going on. And this is important when we lead into relationships and dating because it needs to be the exact same thing. So women are learning in this program how to show up in a way where they don't actually need to set any boundaries with the man. And let's stop for a moment, ladies. If you are honest with yourself, and unless you're just really disconnected from your feminine energy, which you're probably not if you're this far into this video, if you are enjoying this video in any kind of way and you haven't signed off, it's probably because your feminine instinct is resonating with what is being shared. And if your feminine instinct is resonating, then it's online enough for you to know it doesn't really feel good for me to set boundaries. Like, you got a man in a relationship and you're like, hey, don't do that. No, don't do this. Stop doing this, whatever. That's not hot. There's nothing sexy about that. But it can be quite hot in the reverse, can't it? Right? When a man has a really strong backbone and he's very loving, he's like, sweetheart, don't do that. And maybe a little bit of playfulness at the same time, but he's also firm and strong. A woman can get really turned on by that because a woman is really turned on by a man's power, his lack of people pleasing, his strength, his energetic penetration. So when he sets a boundary, you can really enjoy that. The only kind of men that enjoy a woman setting a boundary is really feminine men, where their masculine instinct is offline or very deeply buried. And that can turn on a man because it's like, oh, it's just like mommy. She feels just like mommy. And he is chasing her validation and love still. He hasn't worked through that. But you probably don't want that kind of man. And so there's no reason to be setting boundaries to turn on that kind of man because you don't want to be with that kind of man. And if you are with that kind of man, well, first of all, I'm sorry to hear that. And you can shift probably how he is showing up and actually activate his masculine instinct by shifting the way that you show up. Not by enabling him, by setting boundaries and continuing to be that strong mother type, but instead of letting go of the boundaries, getting really vulnerable with yourself, sharing the feelings that are coming up, learning how to follow, learning how to ask for exactly what you need in a feminine way, which we'll be talking about as we go. So, yeah, before we continue, very important piece of this, and actually before we continue, I'll say this too. Like this video if you've not yet liked it, because we're already over 10 minutes in, and if you're sticking around, you probably do like it, so that's going to help me out. And if you've not yet subscribed to this channel, make sure you definitely do that now, because you're going to get a lot more amazing content like this. Okay, we got to talk though about something important. About safety. A woman's safety is the number one most important thing to me. I do not want any woman getting hurt by practicing what I teach, by using feminine communication, by no longer setting boundaries. The worst thing for me would be a woman who stopped setting boundaries that she was using to protect herself because, well, Zach on his channel, he said that boundaries are masculine and that it's not inspiring to men, so I'm just not going to set boundaries. And then you end up getting deeply hurt or taken advantage of, used, abused, R-word, absolute worst case scenario, SA'd. I just can't say these words. YouTube flags that would be horrible. So I will, before we continue, I will say it is okay to set a boundary if you truly need to. It's just usually women set boundaries when they don't need to. If a creepy man, let's just say, a creepy man is walking down the street with you and he puts his arm around you and starts touching you and tries to kiss you, it is completely okay to tell him to F off, set any kind of boundary you need to set, even kick him in the nuts if you need to, if he's not leaving you alone. There's nothing wrong with that. That is masculine energy, 100%. You are 100% deep into your masculine energy if you're setting any kind of boundary for self-protection. But guess what? Sometimes your masculine energy is actually necessary. Masculine energy is used to protect yourself, so that you stay safe. When a man is not devotional, when a man does not have integrity, when a man is incompetent, when he's incapable of taking care of you in the way that you need, set that boundary. The same goes in a relationship, even a marriage. There can be situations where you have to set a boundary because the man is doing something to hurt you, but you should always try to use feminine communication first. You should always try to be vulnerable first. Because it's like, I mean, here's the thing. If you're in a relationship with a man and he doesn't care about your feelings, because we're going to talk about how to share your feelings and communicate using feminine communication to inspire a man to set boundaries for himself. If he's not willing to do that, if he's not willing to protect you from himself, why the hell are you in a relationship with him? Now, there might be some situations, you got children with them, and, it can get kind of complicated. I'm not going to paint this with a totally black and white brush, but in general, why would you subject yourself to the leadership or lack thereof of a man who is not willing to set boundaries for himself, who is not safe enough to follow, who's not safe enough to be with without having to set boundaries to protect yourself? You're never going to feel safe, and you're never going to be able to truly be in your feminine energy because he lacks that integrity. So there might still be a situation where sometimes you have to set a boundary, and maybe it's not that he's out of integrity. Maybe he's drunk at some point, and he's being really pushy with sleeping with you, and you're just feeling awful and you really don't want to, for example, and he's not listening to your feelings. He's not necessarily a monster, but he definitely needs to get his act together more, and you might need to set a boundary in that situation. Okay, again, it's a tool. You're not a bad person for setting a boundary. You are not a bad person. You're not a bad woman. You're not a bad wife. You're not a bad anything for setting a boundary when you need to, or even when you don't need to. You're still not a bad person. But if you're setting boundaries when you don't need to, what you are doing is impairing the dynamic over time. The more that you do it, stifling his devotion or his potential devotion to take care of you and cherish you, to get to the point where you don't ever need to set boundaries. That's the difference. What we do in our academy program, before we talk more about the communication, is we're showing women how to do this safely. One of the things we're doing, how to do this safely, how to communicate safely, so that you're still in your self-worth. You're not becoming a doormat. You're subjecting yourself to abuse or mistreatment, or potentially just getting screwed over in some kind of way. And they're using their feminine communication and their self-worth to inspire a man into shifting himself, becoming a better man, a more devotional man, to get to the point where they never need to set a boundary with a man again, or at least with their man, or once they find a man. There might be men out in the world that they have to set boundaries with, but they learn on dates and or in a relationship how to set those boundaries how to share their feelings in a way where they would never need to actually set boundaries. And that's just going to feel so much better. You need feminine communication for that. You need self-worth. You also need some level of discernment. You need to find your feminine voice to be able to communicate your needs and feelings. You need to know what you are feeling as well. That's another part of this too. And you need to have a certain level of trust and faith in men, in the masculine, and in yourself to be able to do that. If you're interested in working with us, if you would like help learning how to make these shifts, learning the ins and outs of feminine communication, learn how to fully love yourself in this beautiful feminine way, and you don't want to do it the really much longer, time-consuming, more painful way by figuring it all out yourself, book a call with me and let's find out if the academy is right for you. It's a discovery call. You're going to do that by going below this video, opening up the description, click on relationshipyourdreams.com, watch the video on that page, book that call, and you'll talk to me. It's for free. We're going to find out if the academy is right, and I'm also going to help you figure out what your main control patterns are that are keeping you stuck. And then we'll talk about them, give you some coaching on it, and then if it looks like you're right for the academy, we can talk all about the academy and you can make a decision whether you'd like to work with us. So that's relationshipyourdreams.com. So one of the big things that we do talk about in the academy is feminine communication. You absolutely cannot let go of setting boundaries without learning a new way of communicating that is going to inspire a man to set boundaries instead. That's the shift. So simple example, let's say that you've been on, 5 dates, 10 dates, 20 dates, whatever with a man, and he is leading you into sleeping with him. And let's say you're turned on. You're kind of down for it. Now, I wouldn't recommend, this is a side note, but I wouldn't recommend actually sleeping with a man until you're married, or at least in a really committed relationship where you've communicated and practiced this way of communicating, and he takes care of your feelings and he's demonstrated that level of commitment and competency. But I'm not going to talk about that in this video. Say there is this situation and he's leading too fast in some kind of way, whenever that is, just too fast, and you're starting to feel discomfort. Now, this would be where some women will just let it happen, and that's the absolute worst thing that you could ever do, because you're dishonoring your heart. You don't want to speak up because you don't want to seem too much, or like you want to please him in some kind of way, and that's awful. Dishonoring your heart is especially in this situation, is the worst thing ever, right? There's those type of women. Hopefully you're not that type of woman. Hopefully if you were that type of woman, you've shifted that, or really shifting that, because I would never want you to participate in your own getting hurt in that kind of way. But let's say you are the type of woman right now who would say no, like, no, I'm not ready for this, stop that. Even just saying like, I'm not ready yet, or I don't want to do this yet, or something like that. You're not saying no or stop, but you're still energetically setting this boundary. You're putting up this wall where it's like, do not pass this wall. And a man's going to feel that. What's going to happen is, side note, before we talk about what you can do, men, depending on the man, many men can test this boundary, especially when it's something like sleeping with you. And you keep poking at it, trying to figure your weak points until you give in. Now, I'm not defending that. I'm not saying like this is what all men do. I know that I used to do that as well. I would never actually violate a woman's boundary on purpose, but I would keep testing the waters, so to speak. Now, I'm talking more back when I was single. And that's not going to, well, it depends how a man does it. If it's really playful, a woman might like it. But in general, it's not going to really feel great for a woman, because you're not feeling fully protected by him. You're feeling like you have to kind of be on guard and protect yourself. So, to flip this dynamic, what you can do is start using feminine communication. And as an example of that feminine communication, one of the things we would teach at a very basic level, what we would teach women in our academy, is let's say he's moving forward and like, he's touching you in some kind of way, and you've already been kissing and doing all that stuff before, and you're comfortable with that. You stop for a moment and you say, may I please have some help with some feelings I'm having? That's one way of doing it. There's so many ways you can do it, but I'm just going to start with some real basics here. And he's like, yeah, what's going on? Like, why do you want to stop? What's happening? And you're like, well, I'm feeling a lot of anxiety. You can also say like, I'm feeling horniness too. Like, you can be totally honest if you're also turned on, but whatever the negative feelings are, the things that are in the way, you share that too. And that's the most important part, right? I'm feeling this anxiety. And he's going to ask, hopefully, why are you feeling that way? And then you share, well, what is the reason that you're feeling this anxiety? And it's typically going to be like, I don't know if I'm ready for this, or I feel fear that if we sleep together that, I'll be abandoned. It's another example. Or I don't know if I'm ready to sleep with you because we haven't communicated a lot of values or something, right? There might be a specific thing that's in the way. So you're just sharing the problem that's in the way, the problem that is bringing up this anxiety. And it might not be something that I shared, it might be something different. But the idea is you're sharing this so that he understands what you're feeling and why you're feeling it, and then is hopefully inspired to really understand you and either be able to provide a solution for that problem so that you guys can sleep together, and then he's solving that problem and you don't have to set that boundary. Or it might mean him choosing not to sleep with you for a certain amount of time because he knows that it would hurt you if he did, right? So for example, if you needed to be married, it's like due to your faith or for whatever other reason before sleeping with them, and you share, that's what the problem is. You're not setting it as a boundary, you're just sharing like, this is why this anxiety is coming up. And then he's like, oh wow, I didn't realize that was what was going on for you, that you took your faith so seriously, or this value is so important to you. You know what? We're not going to sleep together until we get married. And this is what, this is where I'm planning on moving things. It's going to make things harder for us because, really I really want to be intimate with you, but I understand that this is important to you. And now you're going to feel a shift. Instead of it being you having to protect yourself from him, it's going to be he's choosing to protect you from him, and even protect you from yourself in some situations, right? Like he's going to protect you from your own horniness, because it's like, oh, I don't know if I can control this. And now you're going to feel so much better because you're being protected by him. And what is masculine energy, or what is part of masculine energy? It's the provider and the protector. So you're feeling his masculine energy, and now you're going to feel so much safer to let go, to be open with him, where you don't have to control anything. You don't have to make any walls in any kind of way. And look, you're not being a doormat, right? Because the reason that so many people, counselors, therapists, psychologists, like there have been so many people, including experts, who have tried to rip apart what I'm saying because they don't truly understand it in depth. Just like, yeah, women shouldn't set boundaries. And on Facebook, I'll like make memes like that on purpose just to trigger the collective and start conversations, to have people confront parts of themselves that for some of them they're willing to face and others are not willing to face. But it brings up this conversation that's really important. But what they're not getting is that there's a much better way. The way that men and women are designed to be, which is a man being fully in his masculine and protecting and providing for his woman, and the woman fully letting go, having faith, having trust, being able to follow her man's lead, and not having to defend herself. Like, my wife has not set a boundary with me in years, to my memory anyway, because she doesn't need to. If she did, I would lead her out of setting that boundary. Not because I'm planning on abusing her when she lets that boundary go, obviously. It's because she doesn't actually need it with me. It's actually, okay, being a doormat is an obvious trauma response. It's a very obvious trauma response. Because you're allowing yourself to be dishonored. You're allowing yourself to be taken advantage of. You're not sharing your voice. You're people pleasing to be worthy in some kind of way, to avoid being abandoned or whatever. But setting boundaries for a woman is also a trauma response. I'd say it's a healthier trauma response, unless maybe the boundary setting is like unbelievably extreme and unnecessary. I mean, like way unnecessary. It could potentially be worse. But in general, it's a better trauma response. But it's still a trauma response. And until you learn how to heal it and have faith in the masculine and only set boundaries when you actually need to set them, you're not going to experience the devotion and cherishing from a man that you need and deserve. You're not going to experience what's actually possible for you, because a man becomes increasingly inspired by a woman who is in her self-worth. So that means not being a doormat and actually sharing what's coming up for her using feminine communication. So she's in her self-worth, and she's not disrespecting him by setting boundaries, by resisting, by doing anything in her masculine energy with him, because she knows on a deep level that she can trust him. That's not necessarily going to shift in a day in a relationship, right? It takes time for that level of trust to be fully established. But this is what you can work towards. If you're in a relationship, it's what you're working towards. In our academy program, we have many women who are in relationships or starting in not perfect relationships, and they're working towards making it better and better. And then same thing if you're single. It's like you're starting with a new man, so you want to attract the most kind of masculine man that you can. How are you going to do that? By shifting as much into your feminine self-worth as possible. That means using feminine communication instead of setting boundaries. And there's going to be situations, I would say on most first or second or third dates, there's going to be absolutely situations where you're going to need to share what's coming up for you. And if you do it by setting a boundary, it's going to start to repel the kind of devotion that you need. This has been a big part for my wife that has made our relationship far better, because I feel so much more, it's not just I feel, but like I am being much more respected by her when she's not setting any boundaries with me. I am experiencing that higher level of respect. And because of that, the more that a woman is able to respect her man while also honoring herself, the more inspired a man becomes to devote to her, to cherish her. And that's pretty cool. So that is it for this one. Again, if you would like help doing this the much easier way, I would love to speak with you on a call. That's relationshipyourdreams.com. Click that, watch the video, book that call with me, and we'll get on that call and we'll find out what's going on in your love life and we'll help you shift it. And then we'll find out if the academy is right for you. And if you are not ready for that yet, that is okay too. Keep watching these videos. Watch as many of them as you can. The more that you watch, the more that you understand, the more that you start to implement from these videos, the more that you are going to shift. And I give a lot of stuff out for free. So use it. Take advantage of it. Maybe you need to get to that point where you've seen a whole bunch of results from what I teach in these videos, and then you realize, like, this is the real deal. I want to be as feminine as possible. And if so, great. Get to that point and then book that call with me. And I would love to speak with you. Or maybe you'll never get to that point and you'll just keep watching these videos, and that's great too. Either way, I just want you to create the relationship of your dreams and get everything that you want and need out of your love life and be the cherished woman that you can be. That's it for this one. I'll see you for the next video.